Namaste. A very good morning to everyone. I hope you all are safe and taking good care. The ongoing times are challenging to say the least, and it is important for us to interact more often, not just from a knowledge sharing perspective, but to purely establish a human connect. Even though it is on a virtual platform, it is imperative for us to exchange perspectives, thoughts, and ideas to help our colleagues and friends sail through this phase in the most efficient manner. I am thankful to the team at IAA for organizing this much needed session with the esteemed partners like Laadli and UNFPA. The topic possesses a pertinent question. Will anything change in gender equations? More than finding an answer to this question, I think the fact that there is a sheer need of posing this question even today is a matter of deep concern. When Ramesh was speaking to me about this topic, I instantly remembered the impactful session initiated by IAA way back in 2013. A session which was based on gender sensitization in the realm of advertising, and I do remember our then programming head participating in the same to share the overall content approach undertaken at Z, which has always portrayed the true strength of women. We are now in 2020, and there is still a need to have a dedicated session on gender equality. This itself is a matter of discussion. Why aren't we as an industry not being able to achieve the required levels of gender equality? Why are organizations not being able to turn absolute gender blind and implement things which are not centric towards any one specific gender? During this lockdown phase, why are only women most complaining about the household chores or children's online classes? Why is the term supermom actually working against mothers? We need to find answers to these and take the specific steps needed in finding a solve once and for all. I am extremely glad to note the esteemed speakers lined up for this session, and I am most certain that with their valuable inputs, we will be successful in generating the right thoughts and ideas to bring the required level of equality. I am very proud of the entire team at IAA for creating and curating such an important dialogue, and I look forward to the positive impact which can be achieved, enhancing the industry's communication in the COVID era, as the title of this initiative rightly suggests. On that note, I would now like to request the esteemed speakers to share their valuable thoughts. Please do take good care, stay safe, stay connected. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in, and thank you, Puneet, for setting the context for the talk today. This is really a great time to reflect, relook, and realign ourselves in every way as we discuss the gender equation issue right to the forefront. Rightfully so, the pandemic is obviously taking the headlines, but the impact of pandemic has been more than the health part of it, which is affected. And a lot of that has affected what is happening in closed doors in homes. And whether it is a rise in domestic violence or rise in further gender equation, which is getting further divided, and the impact of job losses which are happening not only for women but men as well. A lot of these things have created a issue of challenges in people's homes as well. And while gender equalities have diminished in many aspects of life as well, they remain deeply rooted in others, and a lot of you probably understand that what I mean by that. The pandemic, of course, has exposed a lot of cracks which exist in our society. And last part of majority of women around the world, we know, do not enjoy equality. And closing these gender gaps becomes a responsibility of a lot of us, our leaders and policymakers, to make certain constructive steps to address that. Media and advertising in the communication industry have today must recognize and embrace the mistakes we've probably made over the years, and it's time to course correct that. While we've been taking strides towards each year in individual capacity, I think it is time, and this era, as we calling it, the COVID era, and maybe even the post-COVID era, it we are taking this opportunity to discuss, as we must stand for what is good and continue fighting this good fight. And today, I'm really happy, and uh, and I thank a lot of people, who all the leaders who you will be hearing today, who really believe in this cause as well, and are doing a lot in their individual capacity too, but have come on board today to share their views and possibly suggest some points which can take this agenda forward to make it a constructive one. I'd like to thank Laadli and UNFPA to partner with IAA to bring this conversation right up front. And of course, want to thank our partners who helped extend this messaging across. Thank you, MXM, AdGully, and Exchange for Media for your support. So without much ado, there's a lot many exciting speakers lined up for today, and we will get straight in. If we have time for questions, we will take them. But please get the questions coming in. We will collate that and keep asking each individual speaker as and when they finish their talk. So let's get straight in. And our first speaker is Anuja Gulati. She is consultant program management for United Nations Population Fund. We're really excited to have her because she has in-depth knowledge of this at a grassroots level, and her data points will probably bring us, get real issue in hand right up front. So let's look forward to listening to Anuja. Anuja, over to you.
I'm very glad to welcome the International Advertising Association as a partner to Population First and UNFPA to improve communications in the advertising industry through a gender lens during COVID times and beyond. The very way in which we report or tell our stories is a product of our socialization, which reinforces stereotypes. The roles assigned to women and girls tend to perpetuate systems that alienate, exclude, and victimize them. Today, we know better, so we must change that together. I hope that today's deliberations will shed light upon our own biases and provide pointers on how to portray women and girls as true partners towards the well-being and development that we all aspire to. Change takes time, but together we can do it. It has to start somewhere. And I know that today will be one of those milestones of which we will all be proud. Thank you very much.
Once again, would like to thank IAA and Laadli for partnering with us for organizing this event to look at how and why communications during COVID should integrate a gender perspective. I'd also like to thank you for bringing together such an august group of thought leaders to discuss this issue around the table. We have witnessed gender inequalities exacerbate during emergencies, disasters, and humanitarian crises. The COVID pandemic has not only deepened pre-existing inequalities across all spheres, caregiving, health, economic, and social protection, but also disproportionately impacted women and girls. The limited gains that societies have made towards gender equality are at a risk of being rolled back and deepening discrimination further. It is hence important to view our communication, stories, and narratives using a gender lens. What has been the impact of COVID and what does it mean for communication? I will try to discuss this with a few examples. One, you will agree that these are strange times to live in. The pandemic has changed the way the world is functioning. Over the last couple of months, I have been involved in conducting several trainings of functionaries, many of whom are women. The women complain of doing 2 or 3 jobs, one at the workplace, one at home, and one as a teacher to their young children. It is something that we all know and acknowledge. Why then talk about it now? Because it is important to reinforce the idea that women not be tagged with a quote unquote superwomen phenomenon and men engaging in household chores are not trivialized or glorified, but are normalized. This is something you as communicators can undertake to do. Secondly, a significantly large proportion of our health workers, around 70%, are women who face a heightened risk of exposure to the virus. Think of the nurse or the female doctor working in a COVID ward, a woman sanitation worker, or a frontline worker like an auxiliary nurse or midwife, or an Anganwadi worker who have been providing door-to-door services in rural areas. Given the conditions they work in, they are constantly terrified about getting infected, taking the infection back home to their families, especially their children. A recent conversation with a nurse midwife revealed that she was very scared to cuddle her little daughter and take her in her arms because of the fear of transmitting the infection to her. To add to this is the stigma and discrimination all these frontline warriors face. As communicators, can we bring their trials and tribulations, their stories of sacrifice and selflessness to influence the way society treats them? Thirdly, in the last few months, health resources and trained health workforce have been largely focusing on dealing with the COVID pandemic. And there has been an interruption in reproductive and sexual health services and commodities like contraceptives, menstrual hygiene products, etc. Imagine the situation of an adolescent girl from a remote rural community who has returned from a residential, maybe a residential tribal school where she used to receive menstrual hygiene products. She is now not able to access these products because of being locked down at home. And we have reports how many such young girls are resorting to unhygienic products like old cloth, hay, and even dried leaves. Also, imagine a situation in a slum community where women and girls fear accessing community toilets for not being able to maintain physical distancing as a result of the long queues outside toilets, compromising menstrual hygiene, which in turn will impact their reproductive and sexual health. As communicators, can we do stories to bring these issues to the forefront so that the stigma and shame associated with them is addressed and these products are distributed without being considered as dishonorable? Fourth, as the COVID pandemic deepens economic and social stress, restricts movements, and enforces social isolation measures, there has been a surge in violence against women and girls who may be locked down at home with an abusive partner and who may not have the autonomy over their physical and sexual lives. They also face inadequacies to access help and protection mechanisms. In such situations, as communicators, we need to understand that we might not have the luxury of time, and communication should have triggers that prompt immediate action. For example, informing women about the availability of helplines and other means of protection rather than only talking about men not abusing their wives. Can we also think of innovative means of informing women about protection services by including helpline numbers on grocery bills, pharmacy bills, etc.? Communications can also bring to the forefront that this is the time for physical distancing, not social distancing, but social cohesiveness, so that women facing violence feel connected to those who matter. Fifth, the pandemic has impacted women's economic and productive lives disproportionately. This is because women generally earn less, save less, hold less secure jobs, and are more likely to be employed in the informal sector. They also have lesser access to social protection. COVID, by reducing women's economic and livelihood activities, has increased poverty and exacerbated food security at the family level. In the recent past, we have seen that skilled men, I repeat here, who have lost their livelihoods are seeking jobs under NREGA, further narrowing down livelihood opportunities for women. Can our media bring such stories to the forefront? I would like to inform the group here that UNFPA, in collaboration with Laadli, has instituted 15 media fellowships to look at and bring out the gendered impact of COVID in their stories. Like Megha said, the advertising and media industry has, in the last few years, played a very important role in changing mindsets and challenging gender stereotypes. There are several strong positive messages about how men and women are portrayed as equal partners, of how gender stereotypes have actually been broken to sell products. My appeal to all of you here is to keep revisiting the gender conversation. We need to keep talking about women, putting them on the forefront, keep reinforcing the idea of men and women being treated with dignity, respect, and above all, as equals. As communicators, you can do this. You have the power to change the narrative, and in doing so, change the way the country thinks about our women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anuja. I think those were an absolute reality which hits your when you go down on the ground and you realize that there's so much the impact is far hard hitting than what we sit in our homes and probably read about it. So I think we have a couple of questions, and I think we do have time. Adishri, and she's asking, what is that one thing you would do to change in the existing policies on gender equations?
Yes. Uh, Probably when you look at policies, I think we need to see how we look at women being treated equally in our policies. And here, we do say women being looked at equally, but generally, if you look at policies, you look at laws, yes, we have several gender laws for women and girls. But an analysis of these laws, surprisingly, and I had actually done an analysis like this, even our gender laws don't once use the word she, they use the word he. We may have policies, but how is it we truly look at integrating the issues that concern women and girls into our policies is something that we really need to look at and work on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, and even in the corporate world, it's called chairman of the company, and
Oh yes, language is something that really can change a lot.
Yeah.
Chairman, postman, and even now, I mean, when we talk of how COVID is impacting, we say COVID impacting mankind. not humanity. So yes, this is something which we really need to look at. How is it that we can make those small changes in our language to make everyone equal?
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think you did mention about bringing certain changes by the communication industry to help make that changes. I think whilst a lot of us do in our own bit, probably we obviously need to do a lot more. If there's one message you want to give to the advertising, marketing, communication industry to address some of these challenges, what would that be?
Uh, well, one message would probably be that bring issues that concern women and girls to the forefront, not just women and girls, but also the other alternate sexualities, people who live in vulnerable situations. Look at the intersectionalities between gender, caste, class, and other intersectionalities to the forefront. Bring that out in your messaging and communication. You know, communications in the past, like I said, has done that, and this is one way of really changing the entire language.
Got it. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anuja, for your great inputs, insights, and putting the right up front this issue, which we all know exists. But I think it is time we bring it even further and bring the conversation forward. So thank you very much for your time. And I would take now this opportunity to introduce our next speaker, who is none other than Dr. A.L. Sharda. And Dr. Sharda is a director with Population First, another a very critical NGO who's doing a lot of work again at the grassroots level. And along with the UNFPA and Laadli, and the NGO Laadli, IAA has partnered many such initiatives in the past, which is why we thought this is a great opportunity to bring these conversation by these two ladies right up front on gender equation. So Dr. Sharda, looking forward to hearing from you. Over to you.
Shall I start or is a gap? Thank you, Megha. At the outset, a big thank you to IAA for collaborating with Laadli to organize this webinar, which has brought together thought leaders from communication and marketing industry to deliberate on communications in COVID era. I also thank UNFPA for supporting this event. As some of you know, I have been reviewing ads from a gender perspective for the last few years for Campaign India. I had an opportunity to look at some ads which were released during the lockdown and also during post-lockdown period. It is heartening to note that many brands are promoting products and services, framing the communication within the COVID context. As Anuja has said, COVID-19 is going to have long-term impact on our lives, and the buzzword is the new normal, which indicates that the adaptations that we have made during the lockdown are here to stay with us. These include the way we work, the way we access services and products, the way social equations and relationships are defined, and our attitude towards life itself. COVID has exposed the social fissures and fault lines, as Meghna has said, be it the migrant crisis, the increasing incidence of cases in the densely populated slums of Mumbai, or the vulnerability of the elderly. I strongly believe many of us have realized how privileged and blessed we are. The compassion we feel needs to be reflected in our communication. There is a lot that communicators can do to help people understand and deal with this new normal. Social media is providing tremendous opportunity to reach out to people, with the large percentage of population having access to mobile phones and watching a lot of content online. The flip side of it is that a lot of misinformation gets peddled online, causing more harm than good. I sometimes feel that this important medium is not being used as effectively as it could be by us to reach out to people with the right messages. Let me briefly list out a few important changes that we are going to see in our lives in COVID era, the so-called new normal. and what it holds for us to help identify a few pegs for our communication. People are going to spend more time at home, which may bring out the simmering conflicts or lead to better bonding among the family members. Social distancing and safety measures would reduce the support system available for managing the household work, which means adopting more efficient ways of managing household chores and also redefining gender roles at home in a more equitable fashion. Men and women are going to be burdened with caring responsibilities of the elderly due to the restricted access to institutional health services in COVID context. Work from home may be the preferred option for many men and many more women. How do we create that space in our homes for our offices in a situation where all family members are home 24/7 and space could be a major constraint? What are the new work ethics, norms, and cultures that are going to emerge to address these new work contexts? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of focus on achieving work life balance in the current situation. The future looks very bleak for many. Some people will lose jobs, many more will lose their dear ones in tragic circumstances to COVID. Support systems for the elderly and the vulnerable crumble. Thus, uncertainty, isolation, anxiety due to loss of jobs and incomes, as well as increased morbidity and mortality, may cause mental health issues among a large number of people. How do we build meaningful and supportive relationships, homes, and workplaces for people in distress? Learning from home, digital learning will be the new norm for children and young adults. How do we deal with the digital divide? Are we going to have more sharply defined inequalities in education in future? Not just education, but health services would also be technologically driven. Telemedicine is the new emerging option for healthcare. Once again, the digital divide may sharpen the inequalities, the care responsibilities will be more on the families. Technology would also drive our social life, entertainment, and cultural management engagement. We are watching concerts, we are watching films, we are watching plays on TV, YouTube, or various web streaming sites. So, new content and formats may evolve to meet the new requirements. We need to look at how we leverage them to promote meaningful, inclusive, and sensitive content. Many women will go through life changing experiences like the first menstruation, pregnancy, abortion, and childbirth under these difficult circumstances. How do they cope with it? As Anuja has said, violence is likely to escalate against women and in general as well. Many harmful practices like pre birth sex selection, child marriages, withdrawal of girls from schools, etc., may gain momentum, setting back the progress made so far on these issues. Finally, wearing masks, sanitation, maintaining social distance are likely to get established as self preservation measures. People, particularly youth, are likely to be more health conscious. We need to creatively weave in these issues into our communication without compromising on its viewer appeal. Now, more than ever, I feel communicators have to achieve a balance between commercial interest and social responsibility. While reviewing ads for gender sensitivity, I have realized that we have many new narratives and stories told during the lockdown which are heartwarming and resonate with many people. Be it a joint family coping with lockdown, sharing the chores and bonding with each other, or a chocolate brand saying thank you to the Corona warriors, or a bank talking about keeping a khata live with the small vendors by paying them in advance. The ads emphasize kindness, compassion, and gratitude, the values we need most in these times. So, what is our ask from you? You are great communicators. Keep framing your stories within the context of COVID crisis. How inclusive and sensitive your stories are determine how well they resonate with the viewers, helping them cope with the crisis. Let's get more specific. Our asks from you are: one, promote positivism and optimism. It is the biggest need of the hour in these dark times. Two, redefine gender roles, particularly by showing more men in nurturing and caring roles, breaking the stereotype of macho men. By showing women in diverse contexts, roles, and power positions, by showing women and girls in leadership and decision making positions, by giving voice to women's and girls' concerns, needs, and aspirations, by recognizing the contribution of women in various contexts in COVID, in decision making positions during COVID crisis. Third, reimagine workplaces and public spaces in the COVID context. Acknowledge and bring attention to new forms of violence and discrimination that may emerge in the digital world, in the new digital world, actually. It's something which is going to be very, very different. So we need to be very conscious of how the exploitation, how the violence is going to uh, shape take shape in these new times. Finally, be inclusive. The marginalized sections of women, the sex workers, trans persons, and persons with disabilities also face many disadvantages specific to COVID. I know you can do much more, but that I leave to you. Let's watch two ad films which talk of hope and empathy. May we have the ads, please?
मेरे पीरियड शुरू हो गए।
पहली बार हो रहे हैं मुझे, तो काफ़ी अजीब लग रहा है।
पीरियड्स में मुझे आसान काम भी मुश्किल लगता है, बहुत दर्द होता है।
मैं किसी के पास बैठ भी नहीं सकती और जब मैं उठती हूँ बार बार निशान चेक करती हूँ।
घर में एक ही वॉशरूम है तो पैड चेंज करने में मुझे शर्म आती है।
मुझे पैड को कचरे में छुपाना पड़ता है हर बार।
She may not understand what she's going through. She just needs to know. You do. Over 2 million girls will get their first period in lockdown. Your daughter or sister could be one of them. Talk to her. Tell her.
It's normal. It's just a period.
Welcome to the world, my darling. I know तुम क्या सोच रहे हो. What a time to be born, है ना? But I promise you, there is more good in the world today than ever before. क्योंकि जब तुम अपनी आँखें खोलोगे, you won't see a world that's grown apart, but one that's come closer than ever to fight this. When you take your first step, it won't be in a world full of strangers, because we all went through this together. और जब तुम heroes की कहानी सुनोगे, तो they won't be made up, because we found real ones. हमने ऐसा पहले कुछ नहीं देखा, my love, and I don't know what the future will bring. But I know of a doctor जो अपनी family से नहीं मिली, क्योंकि दूसरी families को उसकी ज़रूरत थी. A man who spent everything to feed people who had nothing. और ऐसे कितने सारे heroes who have faced this with nothing but love and courage in their hearts. और क्योंकि दुनिया में ऐसे लोग हैं, I know you will always be safe. I promise. Welcome to the world, sweetheart.
Thank you, Megha. Thank you, IAA, and all the speakers who have joined us today, and all the participants who are watching this program live. Thanks a ton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharda. That was again, as always, a pleasure listening to you, and very clearly communicated key points, some good, some bad. And I think these are absolutely even more stronger times for us to have these conversations, which I'm hoping that a lot of positive will come out of this at the end of it. I have a few questions for you, Dr. Sharda. I think, I mean, you've been involved with the advertising fraternity for very long. You've been reviewing a lot of advertising as well. How do you think advertising can play a big role in transforming the mindsets? You know, we're doing it in small pieces, but is there any guidance you might want to give to our, the industry folks on what could we be doing more to make this far more impactful?
I think the first thing is all communicators should realize that the message is not just what they see, but there is also a certain interpretation that goes in the minds of the people, a certain kind of making sense of the content, right? And that subliminal messaging is something which is very important. You may show always women cooking because that's what is happening in homes, but when you show that, somewhere it gets reinforced in the minds of particularly children and others, men, that cooking is a woman's job. Okay, so there is somewhere you have to talk of the other reality also, where men cook in the houses or women don't cook also, or there are men cooks who cook in the house. Okay, it's not that women cook always, but the reality that we show is because it's majoritarian. So many houses have women cooking, so you show only women cooking, thus reinforcing the whole idea that cooking is a woman's job. So there is somewhere we really need to understand, like, what is the ultimate message that is being taken away by the viewers, when you show a certain thing. So that needs to be very conscious of being, what we are trying to communicate. So is it just that, oh, I'm promoting an oil product and women use the oil, cooking oil, so I want to show a woman. But then there are many other ways of showing a more egalitarian family by not just showing the man sitting in the easy chair and reading the paper, but maybe helping her around in the kitchen, laying the table or clearing the table. Okay, so you can still be doing the traditional thing, but bringing in some transformative messaging into the whole context. So this requires a little more effort to stand back and look at what we are communicating.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think there are certain changes taking place.
Sure.
There are certain creatives which are, removing that whole stereotyping, which we all know. But I think a long way to go there. Any guidance on, or any recommendations on the overall content makers as well? Advertising, of course, there is a 30-second version of it, but there are these 30-minute versions and the 60 seconds versus 60-minute versions out there as well, who are creating a certain kind of stereotyping as well. So do you see that there is, do you think content per se, whether it is, different, whether it's on television, on OTT or films, where do you think that industry can play a role in making a difference?
I have observed one thing, that advertising industry is very young. Like, I see so many young people, like, in content creation. Even for the web series, we had a few workshops with content creators. We work very closely with script writers. Most of them are in their 30s, early 40s kind of a thing. And they actually believe and they live lives, challenging the gender stereotypes, particularly the women. And then even men are quite open-minded, and they accept a lot of they treat the women in their workplaces and all with a lot more openness and acceptance and respect. But the same thing doesn't get translated into the content, because when we say, when you believe in it, why don't you bring the same spirit, the same kind of commitment into your content? They say, oh, we are under the pressure of the, owners of the channel, or commercial constraints or something. So this kind of a, dichotomy, or this kind of a, divide is there. What we believe in, what we live, and what we communicate. I think that is unfair. Because if we believe and we live lives in a particular way, we should try to project the same thing in the content that we are creating in some way or the other. I know that drastic changes are not possible because people won't accept them because they're too drastic. But, slowly bringing in a few messages into the communication on a regular basis will also help the audience understand that this is the new reality. And then maybe they will accept more drastic changes in our communication over a period of time. As you rightly said, it's not going to happen overnight. You cannot today decide that we'll make all politically correct advertisement. It's not possible because you have your commercial constraints. But whatever your conveying whatever you're making, because you have so much of power, because one advertisement on TV reaches to so many people. And especially if you have a celebrity, or if you have somebody, who is endorsing you, then the reach is combined with social media, it is tremendous. So when when advertising professionals are making the communication, I think they should keep this in mind. Like, if I believe in this, then it should get reflected in my communication. And I have a lot of hope, because most of the advertising professionals are young, and they want a different world for themselves and for their children. And, they are a different generation.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of hope.
As they say, if you want the change, you have to be the change.
Yeah.
So, and I do believe that we are changing, but I guess the pace of change is not fast enough. And that is why it is important for all the business leaders to understand the nuances of that. Of course, you have to manage your commercial decisions as well, but I don't believe it can be an either or. You can make it an and society, and it's about a mindset change, which is important for us to accept it and take that forward. So I think those are great words from you as well, Shraddha. Thank you so much for your time, and appreciate your being part of this. I'm really excited with our next speaker now. Someone who I've known for many years, and who's done some amazing work at a professional level, for sure. And there are a few things I've heard about how ABP News has taken certain initiatives with reference to gender equation in some of the in their organization as well. But I'm more excited to hear what Avinash Pandey, the CEO of ABP News Network, has to say about something, a cause which I am very passionate about, for sure. And I'm really looking forward to listening to Avi's views. So Avinash, over to you.
Thank you, Megha, for calling me here. It's an unprecedented time when we are all meeting like this in one corner of our room, safely secured to speak on a subject which is gender equality and the communication in time of COVID. There could not be a better example than this seminar itself. When this crisis started, we are in a business where nothing much can be done by just sitting at home. So our job was to go out, report. Our anchors had to come to office. The production control team has to be in office, because the PCR can be managed only from office, and hosts of other things. What made us realize that some of these work we can do by remote location. And slowly we started communicating with our team that, look, the safety of our employees are the foremost thing, because how we come out towards the end of this crisis will matter how long we are going to survive in our business, rather than what we just do now to do our day-to-day business. And hence we started with very strong communication internally, that how you should keep yourself safe. And one of the few things that we did is that we opened all the doors of our office, so there was no place where you touch the door to get into an area, including the most sensitive area of production control room. There were hand sanitizer kept everywhere. But more importantly than that, at this point of time, the audience all across India and wherever people were watching us across the globe, they were watching television news. And they wanted some kind of assurance that how they're conducting their life, they will come out of it. And hence the first campaign that we started with, which WHO also said, was Corona Ko Dhona. So we, as per my latest estimate, we must have spent about close to $1 million in just promoting the various ways in which you can keep yourself safe from corona. One of them is washing your hand regularly, and washing it for about good 40 seconds is what WHO prescribed. And we made a lot of promos. If your organizer allow me to share the screen, I can show that video to you. Once we were done with that video, we did first time, which was unthinkable for us to do at that time, was that all anchors will start anchoring from home. And what we did is that we, because the anchor is one piece of the overall broadcast, there are script writers, there are producers, there are people sitting in PCR, the advertising has to be inserted in between that, so the MCR has to be in line. And it was a big experiment, and currently I can tell you I'm running my entire second half of the day programming, except morning show, which requires a 3 anchor to sit in the studio. Rest everything we are doing it from home, which was unthinkable for a while back. We also made sure that, and I'll quickly come to what other aspects of that is all, that what we did is that we said a reporter and a camera person is attached like a team. You cannot change the camera person, or a camera person cannot change the reporter. And they started traveling together to all the shoots, and they were part of the team, and the same driver used to take them. So that itself sent a very strong message to the entire team, that how important it is, and in what all ways that you can keep safe. One more changes happened in our office, which we're noticing, that the women were the boss of the house, and all of a sudden that space is now occupied by the male counterpart. As you know, in media industry, 50% of the workforce are also women. So women were also working at home, and their husbands were working from home. So it was a constant conflict for space and privacy that started. Even just now, while I was talking to you, before coming here, I was clearing a communication to be sent to my team, is that it is very important that if you have a domestic conflict, where do you go to? And what we did is that we tied up with Apollo Hospital in Delhi, and a few more hospitals all across India. And today the technology is such that you can consult anyone anywhere. So what we did is that we started a call center, kind of doctor call center in office. So if you have any issue that you want to discuss privately, you can call at that number and discuss. And the entire cost is borne by the organization, the doctor fees or whatever counseling that is required. Also, what we did is that we spoke to a lot of celebrities, and we said how they are coping up, because the maids are not coming. And something that we took in our life for granted, that the cooks and the maids are available at, plumbers and everybody is available. So, what do you do? And how the men, these celebrity men are partnering with their partner to navigate through this COVID time was extremely important. And we asked them to shoot those videos. And in our popular program, SBS, as well as our evening prime time, we made promos, and we ran those promos on our channel, saying that how the male celebrity is doing all the household chorus, which was earlier done by your maid or by or whatever that comes to your house for cleaning. Also, more importantly is that at the workplace, we realize that the stress factor, that though some of us are coming to office regularly. In fact, I was going to office until last week, every single day. Most of us bring to office our stress factor at home. And not being able to do a lot of things which we normally do is creating a hell of a stress in the office itself. For example, when you are doing something in office, you walk up to your colleague's desk and tell them that this is to be done. And we said no walking on and around desk, and you have to talk only on the phone or through the video call amongst each other. And, and what we did is that we started doing a weekly webinar where we call people from all walks of life to employees who are coming to office to talk to them, saying that how you deal with such a crisis, how you deal with new way of working, and which has helped our people to cope up with what we are doing right now. Also, more to audience, coming back to the audience, we did a lot of documentaries as to what happened during the Spanish flu. And one of the things that I did not know myself, that during the Spanish flu in India, about 1.8 crore people in India died, and most of them were women. Unlike COVID-19, where most of the people who are getting infected are men, and also there are a large number of them who are dying are men. And it talks about the trajectory in which our society or the country has developed, where there was at one point of time the nutritional value was only allotted to the male folks, which has now got distributed, and women in our society are also now better nourished than obviously during the Spanish flu, but also talks about that how vulnerable men are today time, and probably they are not healthier a lot in our society, and women are far more healthier a lot. So that way I find quite an exciting time right now, communicating effectively every day on the TV as well as internally, because unlike other organizations, our job is not only to communicate externally, which we are doing through our television set, but also to internal, because to keep the staff motivated, the staff, and let them work is the most difficult thing to do. Megha, any question that you have at this point of time, I can.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Avi. I think I was really impressed by the way you've made arrangements for some of these, the outcome of some of this pandemic which we are facing at home. And like you said, that domestic, whether it's violence or just the space is so constrained in people's homes in most part of the country, and how do you make that work? Very interesting insights which have come out of that, and I think what you're doing is some great, amazing things. But do you think there are ways? This pandemic clearly has brought about far more deeper issues which have come out in the open. As a key industry person, what do you think we as an industry could do more, I guess, to be able to address this? Because this gender sort of inequality in multiple ways has been existing in our society before COVID, is there in COVID, and probably will be there going forward. But how do you minimize this impact, and what as an industry person, as we as an industry bodies can be doing? Is any thoughts on that?
You know what, I missed that point. So we ran a host of videos, and because I can't share my screen, so I had those videos, so I could have played. See what is happening. The men are becoming infected. So either they are taken care at home by their women, or they go to the hospitals. Okay, where who takes care of you? Nurses. This is one particular pandemic where the treatment is not available. So hence doctors have minimum role to play. It is a caregiver which has a far higher role to play. And the caregiver are women. We have numerous such examples which we hear every day on the TV. Is that when the guy has got all right from the hospital, he has walked out, come out and touched the feet of the same nurse by thanking her, saying that, I'm alive today because of you. Can you imagine this in India ever before?
Yeah, amazing.
We have videos where the nurse is working in the hospital and the husband is taking care of the kid. Now, the way I understood it through a lot of hospitals is that these nurses work for 14 days continuously in the hospital, and the next 14 days they are quarantined. Can you imagine their life? And then the wheel moves, Now for nurses who have got small kids to take care of that. So we hear those emotional stories saying that men are taking care of those kids at home. And all of a sudden, the equation of gender, which was one-upmanship, has become an equalizer. And that's what happens in war. That's what happened in a crisis. That people are equal to each other. And that is what has happened. And we are promoting this through in fact, we help a lot of clients create ads around that line because our studio is the only one which is functioning. So we can do a lot. And through your session, if anybody wants to be helped in creating commercials, which our studio is available for free of cost.
That's amazing. That's a beautiful contribution, Avi. And I think you're very right. I mean, the society, whilst we're saying that there is the ugly part of the impact, there is a positive impact as well. And I think some of the in a creative way you have highlighted, I think that's a glass half full approach, I guess, to say that it takes all kinds to make this society. So, but thank you so much, Avi, for your time, your inputs, your insights, and all what you've been doing in this space. Really appreciate your time. I think our audiences would have definitely taken a lot in from there. So thank you so much once again, Avi.
It's a pleasure, Megha. Thank you for organizing this.
See you. I'm really, really looking forward to our next speaker. She's a dear friend. I've known her for many, many years. We've grown up together professionally as well. And Nandini Dai, who's the CEO of Lodestar, has been a champion for multiple causes at an individual capacity, as a member of IAA, as a very integral member of the Mancom of IAA as well. And I am really looking forward to what Nandini has to say about where we are and where could we go from here. So Nandini, over to you.
Thank you, Megha, for those kind words. Hi, Avinash. It was a delight to hear you as always. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. Let me start by saying this as simply as I can. The last 4 months have been a surreal experience. 4 months back, we were steadily moving towards a promising and an equal future, with the world having truly started to acknowledge the need for gender balance and accepting that the equal participation of women is the most effective way to lift communities, companies, and even countries. And that with gender equality, societies become stronger and economies more dynamic. In fact, on most occasions, the world had increasingly started noticing its absence and celebrating its presence. And there was a growing acceptance that an equal world would definitely create a more enabled world. Unfortunately, COVID-19 hit us. And from the initial indications of it being a major public health catastrophe, it is now quite apparent that it's going to be a deep, slow-burning socio-economic catastrophe for a very, very long time. Even at the furious pace at which the medical research fraternity is working to find a vaccine, it seems like it may be a year, 6 months, 18 months before we have a workable solution. And this is having a deep, permanent impact on how we live and work. In fact, even as we speak, our society is being reoriented for better or for worse in many dramatic ways. For example, there are fervent collective conversations on what we need to do to manage the new norm at workplace. Avi spoke a lot about what he is doing at his workplace. The question that I ask is, starting with, is what is the workplace? Companies like TCS, who have declared 75% work from home for the next 5 years, have already put down a new playbook and a formidable IT infrastructure to manage the new norm. And I'm sure each of your companies, you are working with what in a way you are thinking about how to manage a new norm so that business results can go back to the old normal. But all of us are thinking work front and we are fixing it. We are actually each one taking steps not only at the physical level, at the emotional level, at the medical level, at all levels to ensure that smooth functioning happens, that the business continues in the next few months. But I would propose that even as we are thinking hard about new norms in the workplace, this is the best time to promote more constructive patterns in our societal and cultural narratives as well. If we want to push for long due changes in the gender equation, it is clear that unlike other low periods, these are tough times for all of us. In fact, what makes it completely different from any time in the past is that we have spared no one, and I mean literally no one. And ironically, perhaps for the first time, we stand genuinely united as a race by the odds that are stacked against us. It's a tough time for men, women, children, elders, tough time for doctors, business people, big or small, people staying in tiny houses, large houses, slums, South Mumbai. The pandemic has indeed turned out to be a true equalizer. And because it is so formidable a threat, it will most likely bring out all the instincts that have made us one of the fiercest survivors as a species. Closer home, it has brought to the forefront many issues that are always in our face, even as we look through them because it was an easy way out. And now that we are in the cusp of a catharsis, how we evolve and navigate the new model of shared responsibilities on the domestic front will propel us either 10 years ahead or drag us 10 years back. According to the doctors, couples who have to multitask professionally and personally are finding it tough to cope with work from home arrangements, juggling office, home, children, joint family, and the innumerable chores that need to get done with absolute no break and with no help. It is hard going. In addition, there is no respite as schools are locked, creches are closed, playgrounds are shut, and to complicate things in many homes, the male is not necessarily mentally prepared to pitch in for household chores, having never done any housework before. These circumstances are obviously going to bring out behavioral changes. So, to the topic and the question, will anything change in the gender equation? My answer is yes. Even in gender interaction, there will be a new norm. To put it bluntly, this pandemic will change the way men interact with women at home forever. Let's build three scenarios to envisage what can happen next. Each of these scenarios may change the relationship and the equation at home. Let's look at scenario one. The situation has become really tough. With men not used to doing household chores, the burden of all household chores land up mainly in the women's lap. She was used to juggling home and work. So all that she had outsourced to maids and cooks, she now quietly takes on those two. She also mentally accepts that since I'm allowed to work, I better not grumble. Or for peace at home, I will do it all. It has also been drilled into her head that women can multitask efficiently and effortlessly. Almost afraid to face the consequences if she pushes back, she has further cornered herself into becoming a superwoman, a Mata Durga with 10 hands. What is she afraid of? My take is, forced into a corner, society will reinforce the norms of the past. Women will become more vulnerable as they are by and large, at least in India, less educated, lower paid, and seen as the primary caregiver of the family. They are afraid, they unwillingly, they will have to leave their jobs. They'll have to give up their financial independence. This unequal participation will turn the clock back. Emotionally, monetarily, socially, and actually, at least 10 years back, if not more. So will there be a change? Yes, if this first scenario plays out. Let's look at another scenario. There are limited resources in the house. The house is small. So far, the family was happy with a single desktop. Most of the connectivity was happening through mobile. And then now the child has online studies. Both parents are working from home. So they all need the desktop. The Wi-Fi has to get divided. What do you think will take priority in most normal households, at least in India? Who do you think will start compromising and sacrificing first between all these three entities? I know both these are pessimistic scenarios. These are the worst case scenarios. But I see them going to be played out in many other houses. At the office level, we keep talking to all the employees to ask what's happening in their houses, how are they faring. So we fix the office, but the individual needs to fix their home. The individual needs to change these. But let's also look at a third scenario, a more optimistic one, like the one possibly happening at my home. We are 5 of us. Husband, I have 2 sons, grown-up sons, and my mother-in-law. March 24, there was total lockdown announced. All the staff stopped coming home to help. The family quickly got together. We listed down the chores that needed to be done. We discussed and set down the new expectation. We created a new shared roles and responsibilities. We created partners. We created rotation. For example, cooking. So far, we had employed a cook to make our meals. Not one, but actually 2. Cooks would come just in case the first one didn't land. There would be a backup. Probably an evolved household, not possible with anybody, but we had 2 cooks. So none of us 5 people actually needed to cook for the longest time. But like they say, necessity is the mother of invention, or in this case, the grandmother of invention. Now, thanks to the new norms, all of us with internet as a teacher now know how to make all sorts of dishes. All of us efficiently multitask and cover each other's back. The entire house has evolved and has shifted gear. In fact, abroad, the do-it-yourself concept is all prevalent. Now we have imbibed that at home too. So we had a contract to clean the house ACs. Now we know how to do that too. By setting the right expectation, I believe we have truly achieved gender equality at home. A house like mine has actually leapt 10 years ahead with gender neutral roles and responsibilities. I know it is easier said than done. It worked in my house as the mindset was right. I, as a woman, believe that the task should be democratized. And the rest of the family don't think that was an unfair ask. And gender equality was something that is a well-spoken concept in the house. So it happened easily. I think all of us in our own respective houses need to fix things just like we did at the workplace. Just because it is a home, it need not be looked at as a place with only emotions work. But let me say that gender equality is not just a woman issue. Men suffer from it too. Because even today, I have seen father's role as a parent being valued less by society, despite his presence being as much as the mother's. Young men find it emotionally tough to ask for help, for fear that will make them less of a man. In the UK, the biggest killer between the ages of 20 to 49 is not road accidents, cancer, or coronary heart diseases. It's suicide. Even men feel fragile and insecure by a distorted sense of what constitutes men and success. We don't often talk about men being imprisoned by gender stereotypes, but they are. In a UN speech, Emma Watson, the famous actress, she said, and I quote, "When men become free, things will change for women as a natural consequence. If men don't have to be aggressive in order to be accepted, women won't be compelled to be submissive. If men don't have to be too controlled, women won't have to be controlled. Both men and women should feel free to be sensitive. Both men and women should feel free to be strong. It is time we all see gender on a spectrum instead of two sets of opposing ideas. If we stop defining each other by what we are not, but start defining each other by who we are, we will all be freer. Gender equality will happen with freedom from prejudices. But I would urge all men and women of an old truism. In all adversity, one should see an opportunity. It is a cliche, but sometimes a cliche is a cliche because there's no truer way of seeing it. So if life throws stones at you, pick them up and learn to use them to build the strongest edifice for yourself and for your future. And if life throws a large rock at you, like it has now, let's sink it to the ground and use it as a foundation stone on which we will build the structure of true gender equality. After all, the best foundation stones are made of rock. Thank you for listening.
Wow, that was so good, Nandini. Really, really inspirational. I just wanted to continue listening to you. You were speaking so well. You brought such an interesting perspective to it, and such a bang on set of points. The three scenarios you created, so true, and that is a reality. I'm also fortunate to be part of the scenario number 3. But that's our vision, and that's our hope that the society at large gets to that scenario. But we also know that large part of that scenario is between a 1 and 2, and that's really what I guess we as privileged ones, a few of us who should and are probably doing in our own little ways on how do you make that that thinking and then mindset change in the minds of people, and I'm sure we do that.
Interestingly, Megha, the scenario 3 in current circumstances may actually put you and me at a disadvantage, and which is why I say it is time. It is an equalizer,
yes.
And everybody's mindset can change. For example, I mean, we are not used to cooking is one part of it, but we also maybe not, our houses may be larger. So hence the amount of work that you have to do may be far more. So it's at this point of time, it's truly all the scenarios. There's only one equalizer, a change in mindset. Because if that happens, we are all going to leap 10 years forward, and what would have been a gradual evolution will move leapfrog, because when we come out of this, we will either have established that people can do, like my sons can today cook.
Absolutely.
And there's no, the only time that I could think of them cooking was if they stayed outside, went abroad, did something which was not with us. The expectation that my sons will cook in our house may have been, so the cook will do, after the cook, maybe I will do, my mother-in-law will do, but by the time the sons came in, they were almost like the last, option in this, but not true any longer. And they've all adopted quickly. And I think they're enjoying it. So it's not necessarily, something that we have to think that this is the tough and, it's going to last for a short period of time. It's a psyche change. It's a mindset change. And this is what they can do forever now.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. But like, like I said, we are the privileged few, and whilst there is a equality of sorts which is setting in, we hope that the entire society moves in that direction. I wanted to ask you a lot of more questions, but we're short of time, Nandini. But thank you so much for your time and your inputs and your insights. I think our audiences will definitely benefit from all you have said, and all of you who are listening now and probably will listen later when it's on our website. Opt for option 3. It is the only option we should have, and it will change everything around us. So thank you so much, Nandini, for your time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
I am yet again excited for our next speaker, and this time we're doing a little different format. I'm really happy and excited to have Ashish Bhasin. As you all know, Ashish, he's the CEO and APAC and CEO of APAC and Chairman of India for Dense Wages Network. And Ashish, I've known Ashish again for many, many years professionally, and he's someone I absolutely admire and respect for the way he has grown Dan into a formidable player in the country and around the region. And so what we do this time is it's going to be a bit of a fireside chat kind of conversation, not where Ashish speaks. He and I will have a bit of a conversation about it. And please keep the questions coming. If you have any particular question for Ashish you'd like me to ask, I'll be more than happy to do that. So thank you, Ashish, for your time. Welcome to this webinar, which I think is an important point to be discussing right up front. But first of all, let me thank you for being here.
My pleasure, and thank you for inviting me. And I also got a chance to hear the wonderful speech that Nandini just made, and look forward to listening to all the speakers. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Ashish. So let's begin first of all from your role in Dan per se, and I am maybe you'll have the exact numbers, but I'm given to understand that Dan in the region has nearly more or around 50% of women workforce around, and a lot of them in the leadership position as well. So before we go down the route of discussing the gender equality, discrimination or stereotyping part in from a societal point of view, at a Dan level, what is your view and what is it that you have done as a leader to address some of the gender equations?
Okay, so coming back to that, I think in Dan we are really, really lucky because we do have a very good proportion. It can always be better, but yes, it's nearly 50% overall. Even at senior levels, we have a very good level compared to the environment. We've got several country leaders and CEOs who are women leaders, but still it's not good enough. So while it's 50-50 at the organizational level, it's probably 35 or so. I might be getting the numbers slightly wrong, but it's 35 or so at the board level or at the CEO level. So I think there is still some more work to be done, not just in gender equality, but also in race equality, ethnic equality, all of that. And we're very, very consciously working on all these areas. In fact, in Dan India, we were amongst the first people well before this became more sort of commonly practiced to form a Dan Women's Council, and I think that helped a lot because there were some things when I founded the company. When it's like a startup, so you're involved in every single thing, but there are some things which only a woman can provide to a woman, and a man just cannot, in spite of your best intents, because there are some things that you just will not be able to know or relate to. I'll give you a very small example. So, when we formed this Dan Women's Council, in our ladies' toilets, now I go around inspecting toilets, inspecting everything, particularly in the days when I set it up. There was a need to have a closet where women's hygiene products could be kept, so women could use it. It never struck me. I never even knew it. Now, the moment we formed the Dan Women's Council, that was the first suggestion they did. It was such an easy thing to do. And in hindsight, I kicked myself because it should have been such a simple thing to do. So I think what we did was we empowered women to take decisions which would impact the whole organization, but would have a line of sight from a woman's point of view. And I think that made all the difference. So leaders like Rajni or Rubina or Hiru or several other of our CEOs, we put them together and we formed a Dan Women's Council and empowered them to take a lot of decisions. I think that's really the starting point. There's also one more observation that I had. In advertising for men and women, you'll be surprised to know that almost 50% of people who join advertising leave within the first 3 years. I'm not saying leave the organization, they leave advertising because it's a very, very difficult profession. Very easy to enter, very hard to work onto that. Then if they stay on, then they usually stay on. If they stay on after 7 years, then they stay on for 20, 30, 40 years. People like us, there's nowhere else to go. So you keep doing what you're doing. But with women, we found a very different thing. Even after 7 years, so their actually staying rate was good after 2 to 7 years, but they were falling off around 7 to 9 years, which was very surprising, which wasn't happening in men. And that's when we realized that's when, you know, many women get married, become of childbearing age, societal pressures, in-laws pressures, etc., and they just weren't being able to cope with this. And that's where some things like these Dan Women Council, you know, who are women leaders who've gone through this, who've managed it very successfully, leaders like Divya, all of them, and made a difference to the you know, to the industry. Them telling and guiding and mentoring the younger lady managers versus, let's say, me trying to do it, or some other male leader trying to do it, there is a huge big difference on that. And I think that one little step helped us set it right. We have a long way to go, in my opinion, but at least you know, that started our journey off well.
No, which is why I started with this, because I know some of the action points Dan has taken to address some of those issues and I think the Women Council is a good idea, which is obviously making the difference. Also, I think as an industry representative, from an advertising. So Dan, of course, does great, and you're absolutely right on in terms of the stats you highlighted, that it's somewhere down the line or actually up the line, the women seem to dissipate, and there are very few sort of leaders. Handful of women leaders in the CXO levels in our industry, and the points, the highlights, the points you highlighted are true to irrespective of industry. Actually, that's industry agnostic stats. So, is there some recommendation as a senior leader in the industry? What are the things we should be doing to address some of this? That why don't we have more women CXOs in our industry, and what could we collectively probably address as a few steps in that direction?
I think the biggest problem in this is that, so everybody wants to give equality. I don't think you'll come across any leader who says, I want my organization to be unequal, or I want women to be treated inferiorly in my organization. I don't think any such leader will exist if they were to do. So everybody wants it. But the problem is there's a difference between wanting it and taking affirmative action to making it happen. I don't think we can bank on equality. You cannot say that I'm going to provide an equal level playing field, right? Because there's a difference between equity and equality. You first have to get everybody onto an equal level, and then you can have equality, right? So, but you need equity to get onto an equal level. And if I were to relate it to COVID, I was just listening to Nandini before, and I'm an optimist by nature. Now, there are a lot of trends which were happening in India, in companies globally. I don't think COVID is going to cause anything new to happen. But I think what COVID is going to do, this whole COVID situation, is that it's going to accelerate some trends. So some things that might have taken 3 years to happen might happen in 3 months. And I'll give you a few examples of that. For example, digitization, we all know, was a trend. It was happening even before COVID. We could see it and so on. This has hugely accelerated it. Now even grandmothers are on Zoom, right? So something which would have taken 3 to 5 years has actually happened in 3 months, because human beings are very adaptive. Once you're forced to do something, you do it. I have never worked from home one single day in my life until here. And I wasn't a big believer in it, to be honest. Now, for the last 3 months, I'm working from 6 a.m. in the morning, sometimes till 10 p.m. in the night. And 90% of the work is happening. Yes, there are some things you miss, etc., but a lot of that work is happening. So this has forced us and accelerated a trend. And where I'm optimistic but where we need to do an affirmative action, I think, is in the context of women in this. The fact that work from home is now going to be a part of our lives. I don't think it'll be work from home. I think it'll be flexible working, in the sense that you will have some amount working from home once things settle down. Even when normalcy happens, even when vaccine comes in, most organizations will have flexibility. You'll have some working from home. You'll have some times when you'll have to go to office for meetings, etc. We'll get into a flexible working scenario. I think that can work really well for women, because one thing that COVID has done is it has made geography is now history. It doesn't matter where you're sitting. I'm sitting in India today and managing APAC, which earlier was thought it is impossible. Even I thought it was impossible. I shifted my base to Singapore to be able to run it, but it's running as well. Whether I was sitting in Singapore and here, it's making absolutely no difference in that, right? This gives women that flexibility, because they have multitasking, they have family pressures, they have kid pressures, and so on. it allows them that. And not only flexibility from time wise, it's also geography wise. I mean, today uh, a bright young girl sitting in Meerut can easily aspire to do a job in Bombay or in Delhi or somewhere else without having to shift city, which is a big problem for a lot of women, etc. Simply because technology now permits it and our mindset has now changed. If 3 months ago somebody applied to Discovery and said that I want to do a job, but I'm going to be based in Meerut, for example, Bareilly, and I'll do it from there, 99 out of 100, every manager, including you, would have said, look, that's not possible, right? You've got to be here. Today, you'll say that, okay, maybe a large part of your job can be done. It also saves me a little bit of money, not having an office and so on. So I think the optimistic way of looking at it is that COVID is accelerating something that could have taken 5 or 10 years to happen. It's now up to us whether we take the acceleration in the right way or not. And like what Nandini said, that mindset shift, if we are able to bring about, I think this is a godsend opportunity to us to make a change which would have taken 20 years. We can do it in 2 years if we get this right. So I'm optimistic, and I want to use this as an opportunity for my organization and for the industry.
Fantastic. And that is absolute words of beautiful words which all of us want to hear. If industry leaders like yourselves can actually make that, implement those things. In fact, the flexi timing initiative, as you're also aware, IA has led in the past, which has been beautifully led by Nandini, and she's made some great inroads in that. This is if this as an industry we really actually implement it, and because we are really seeing that impact of it, is that really can manage working out of home from wherever you are, then this will be a really positive outcome of this pandemic, which is fantastic. And talking about Merit, my CFO is based in Merit now. He went back to home, his hometown's Merit. And I was always obviously concerned when he decided to do that, and he's going to be there, but it's functioning absolutely fine. So if your CFO of your company can be sitting out of a place like Merit and still run the business, we're okay. So this is great news. So Ashish, what else do you think are the areas from an industry point of view? These are good at a business corporate level, but at a society level also we're seeing some of those issues which are being addressed, like Nandini highlighted the scenario 1 and 2, and then Dr. Sharda and Anuja had to speak about a few grassroots realities. So this is more as an individual, from an individual point of view, what you're seeing around you, what is happening around you with your friends and family and your help and your staff. Do you see that there is a mindset change which is actually taking place at and second, is it different to the different strata of societies you come from?
Look, Megha, everybody on webinars and when you speak with intelligentsia does a put on and puts on everything and says there's complete equality. Now I'm also cooking, and I'm also I also took a photograph trying to make a bed because some publication wanted it. That's not gonna. I don't think that's sort of change is gonna in reality happen overnight. Okay, over a period of time, a lot of things will change, but that's not gonna happen. But we've got to focus. This is an opportunity that we've got, and again, now taking it to the societal level. Like I said, I'm optimistic, and I like to do positive things rather than just crib about what's not good. I think the biggest change to status of women or status of our society, of equality, everything can happen only from education, and I think everybody knows that. This is a huge opportunity because for the first time education can go online. A lot of children drop out because they're not able to go to, either they have to work or they are married off or societal pressures or whatever, they're not able to go. I think this is forced us and showed us that education can now be taken online. If we take some affirmative actions, if we, there were some states that had started giving free laptops to girl children, or in fact to all students up to 12th standard and so on. Instead of giving other things, if we other SOPs, if we just ensure that digital connectivity and digital capability is installed in every single child, whether coming from a rich house, poor house, from a village or a country, again that whole process of getting to a higher level of literacy and proper education, which would have taken 10, 20 years. It was still happening. So again, I say these were all trends that are happening, but COVID can make it, because of this, we can compress that period. So what would have taken us a 20-year journey, we can actually do it in 2 or 3 years if we just put this thrust behind an infrastructure. We start making software for education, because once the girl child is educated, that opens for her so many more opportunities, opens her mind, gets, and the genesis of equality starts from education, is what I believe. And I think the inequality also stems from the fact that in India, the girl child has been given a secondary preference as far as education is concerned. So societally, if you ask me, I think the positive impact that we can do of this is to focus on that. For our industry, communication, I mean, we've always played a role. I've always wondered whether advertising reflects society, or does advertising have a responsibility to lead society? And when you think about it, it's a very difficult question to answer. I do believe we have a responsibility to actually lead the society in a particular direction. So two things that can make a difference to it. One is education, which I spoke about. The other is communication. I think if people get together and start nudging, communication can provide a nudge that, okay, look, this is, once you highlight issues and bring them into focus, they automatically start getting, addressed. So measurement of problems, etc., that starts happening. And I think that's where our industry can play a much, much bigger role than what we are currently playing. And I think at IAA we are doing some bit, but we need to do it on a much more concerted effort with all broadcasters, publishers, media owners, agencies, clients coming together to see how we can use communication to provide that little bit of a nudge, which should be coming up from the education on the other side.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's absolutely bang on, Ashish. Education has been the change which has made that change happen in our society over the years. And this is probably the right time, and the accessibility. I think that is what has happened. Data is accessible to even the smallest and the remotest towns and villages of our country today. But how do we cohesively work? I think there are a lot of things happening at sort of a bit of ad hoc level, but at an overall country policy industry level, maybe there are many more things we can do together. But I think that's my communication and education is my key takeaway from your.
And Meera, sometimes there are events in history which are actually seminal, and you see the impact of it 20, 50, 100 years later. I believe the biggest blow to the caste system, not that it's gone away in India or whatever, but one of the biggest blows to the caste system was provided by the Indian Railways. Because for the first time, irrespective of your caste, color, or creed, if you bought a ticket to the first class, after the Mahatma Gandhi episode, you could sit in the first class, right? It doesn't matter whether you're a Brahmin or a Shudra or a Kshatriya or whatever. If you bought a ticket, so it actually dealt a blow to the caste system. I think digitization, which is now accelerated by COVID, is one thing that can provide that blow to illiteracy. And this is an opportunity. Our government is focused on 50,000 things, and rightfully so. Just as how we are building the infrastructure for the country, which is very important, bridges and sea links and so on and so forth. I think we also need to bring now social infrastructure, which is going to be led by education, and a huge thrust has to be given on providing this. And I think that will be a big effort towards equality, not just between men and women, between rich and poor, between rural areas and urban areas, etc. Because digital is a leveler, and COVID has pushed that leveling in a very short period of time.
Totally. Couldn't agree more, Ashish. Thank you so much for your insights, inputs, and your time for this very important topic. And I think what you're doing, you're actually leading by example, which is what all of us should be doing. And thank you so much for your time and your recommendations as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this chat with Ashish as much as I did with having with him. I'm really looking forward to yet another fabulous speaker. And she comes with rich experience with on-ground journalism. And her inputs, in my view, will play a big role in highlighting to us some of the key things we probably should be doing, not only in the in the COVID era, but post-COVID era, and what women can do, and what is the role of women in that. So I'm really happy to introduce to you Nirupama Subramaniam, who is the resident editor for Indian Express. She's based in Mumbai. And so happy to have you, Nirupama. Thank you so much for your time. Over to you.
Thank you for making me part of this. Very interesting presentations and conversations that you've been having so far. I was in for the last one and briefly just before that, but very interesting. And I think the last conversation actually segues nicely into what I'd like to say, but I'll leave it to you to ask me a question, and then maybe I can start with responding to that.
Actually, you can start with what you have to say, and I'll probably have the questions at the end of it. So, I'll
Okay.
you. The stage is yours.
Right. So, Megha, my concern is not so much how it is impacting journalism, COVID, and how it is impacting women in journalism. That is, of course, journalism has a lot of women. A lot of bylines that you see in media, top bylines are that of women. And journalism itself is undergoing a huge change because of COVID, and it was always going to happen, this kind of change, but COVID has accelerated it, the digitization of newspapers and so on. I think that is well known, and I don't really want to go into that. It's going to affect, whatever happens is going to affect men and women equally. I think a lot of women are employed in media, so that is not my real worry. Today, what I'd like to speak about here is about the, when we say, when we talk about economic recovery after COVID, and that includes all of us. That includes, us professionals in the media. Advertisers especially, because advertising depends on demand, and demand depends on growth. So if you think of growth, economic growth, I think one of the things from the gender perspective that we should be looking at is how to increase the participation of women in the economic revival of the country, because if you look at every developed economy in the world today, whether in Europe or America or Australia or even in Southeast Asia, it is powered by women. Why are we looking even at Southeast Asia? Look at South Asia, for instance. If you look at Sri Lanka, and if you look at Bangladesh, their economies today, the reason that Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, of course, Sri Lanka is going to be terribly worse off after COVID because it depends so much on tourism. And also on remittances from abroad, from women who go abroad to work. However, if you look at Bangladesh, it is a women's story, really. And in India, what has been happening over the last 15 years, 20 years, is that despite a phenomenal increase in economic growth before COVID, you had the participation of women in the workforce dropping dramatically. I'm quoting numbers from perhaps 2018, where 35% of the workforce, which is already a low number of women in the workforce, was employed. And this suddenly dropped in about 2017-18 period to about 26%. There are lots of explanations for it. One explanation is that the kind of jobs that the economy was creating were not women-centric. The jobs in technology, their jobs in factories, maybe these were not suitable for women. Also, the perception that there is the streets outside are safe. This grew dramatically after 2012. And although most of the crimes against women are committed within the family, 90%, if you look up National Crime Records statistics, 90% of the crimes against women, sexual assault especially, are committed within the four walls of a house, or by persons known to the woman, not really on the streets outside. But the perception somehow grew that the outside world is unsafe for women. So less and less women started joining the workforce, and this, oddly enough, the previous speaker was speaking about education, how education is a great leveler, but it has been seen that the more your education, which means the more affluent you are, the more likely you are to be married to an affluent person, the more unlikely you are to work. So education and employment doesn't seem to be exactly correlated. The poorest women, the women with the least qualifications, are the women who are working. Now, in the post-COVID world, what we have to do is figure out, like Bangladesh, what are the jobs that can also bring in women. There are likely to be issues post-COVID, I think, where you will see there are going to be scarce jobs. And already there is a debate in society about, if there are X number of jobs, should women have a right to any of the, to 50% of those jobs? Should women have the right to those jobs? Are men more entitled to work than are women? These are questions that are going to come up. These are society questions, and education can a kind of education that is more all round, I guess, rather than just something that depends on getting a degree out of a college or a school, would have to be required. And that is where the advertising people come in, because these are the people who can, and also journalists, I guess, as journalists, we worry about this all the time, and our stories and our reportage is all about pointing out gender disparities, even in this last so many months, 4 months already. We have been writing about how there's a gender disparity even when it comes to online education. If there is a boy and a girl in a house, and there's one tablet or one device, one phone, I mean, it's more likely to be a phone, who gets priority there? It is the male member, whether it is the father or it is the brother. So if both a brother and a sister have to attend online classes, then it would more likely be the brother who gets priority to that device. So these are things that we, as media professionals, as journalists, and as advertisers, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about it honestly. We can't brush these issues under the carpet, and we have to I mean, I find in these last 4 months or 3 months, that urban India, we used to say 30 years back, and it was supposed to be fashionable for, we used to be dismissed as jhulawalas or JNU types, that, you're always talking about, these things. But at that time, we used to say there's a divide between India and Bharat. And now, right now, that divide has become much more apparent than it has been in the last 20 years, when we have seen a lot of migration come in from small towns, from the villages into India. That difference seemed to be sort of, if not disappearing, it seemed to have diffused a little bit. But with this reverse migration crisis, and with the kind of the unseenness of urban India, of this crisis, of the unseenness of our top media, of our top television media, of this crisis, I think we are not doing we are not messaging properly, perhaps, that there is a divide, that this divide may persist if we do not point it out. There is this divide between men and women. There is this divide between urban India and poor and rural India. There is this digital divide, and the digital divide will break down further into gender divide. Unless we put these things out there very honestly and deal with it and not suppress it, not say ha ha he he, everything is all right, India is such a great country, all will be well, just bang your pots and everything will be okay. I don't think we are going anywhere. I think we have to take these issues head on. And I heard the previous speaker say that caste has been leveled out. I'm sorry, caste has not been leveled out. The railways have not been a leveler, and it still persists very much both in the urban sphere and in the rural sphere. Caste has disappeared for the upper class because they don't need to acknowledge their caste. They are in other ways privileged. They don't need to acknowledge their caste. As you go lower down the strata, there is I think the caste delineations are much sharper, and people feel that caste assertion is the way to actually deal with whatever situation they are in. So I'll stop here. I think I've said too much, and then maybe you can ask me a question now.
Yes, Nirupama, thank you so much. Lot of contradictory points from your end to some of the earlier ones we've spoken. I think, and you're right. I mean, it is sometimes, you tend to miss the woods for the trees, and that's really maybe we need to be focusing a bit more on the certain grassroots ground realities, which are probably a little different when sitting maybe on a higher pedestal somewhere. So what then, according to you, I think I have two questions and we have limited time, so I'll just ask you both the questions together. One is that what do you think women how can women play a key role in bringing the whole economy back on track, as in, like, what are the maybe couple of key steps or directions you can give us on that? And second, if we are, and because we're saying that there are certain ground realities again which are not exactly the way it seemed to be, what should we as an industry, what are the maybe few steps we as an industry then should be doing to address that?
I think this is not something that women can do by themselves. I think our economic planners, our all of us, media professionals, we are the people who have to, policymakers, government, everybody at every stage, CII, everyone. I heard the previous conversation talking about chief executive officers. I think it's, and as he said, it's right down the line. It's not just about CEOs. It's right up to the bottom level. To get women to participate in the economy. But for that, jobs have to be created, and a certain kind of jobs that women will find for which women are more suited. I mean, technology jobs are, we have found that it's mostly a male-oriented job in India, at least, in our IT industry, which is why there are probably not that many in the IT industry. The IT boom has been the biggest boom in the last 20 years, and mostly it has been a male-oriented job. So we have to, like Bangladesh, we have to find jobs. We have to find markets abroad for those for that kind of growth, which actually pull in more women. For instance, in my previous assignment, I was posted in Chandigarh as the editor of the Express, and that took me to a lot of villages in Punjab, and where I found that in Jalandhar, where there's a thriving sports goods industry, there used to be orders for making footballs, and they used to be sourced out to self-help groups by the big brands who are making footballs. So they would source it out to self-help groups who would then distribute it to various women. So I have spoken to women in the Jalandhar district, in villages in Jalandhar district, while they were actually stitching these footballs together. I mean, that's a skill job, but women can do it better because they are better at stitching these things. In Sri Lanka, where I was posted a long time ago, where Victoria's Secret and Triumph and these other innerwear brands had huge um, factories, women were the biggest, were the largest chunk of employees, and they were, because they had better finger work, as they say, with these things, with these undergarments that they had to make. So women were employed in large chunks. Women were employed in the tea industry as pluckers because they are adept at plucking the two leaves and a bud better. So we have to actually see where women can be employed, and we have to have people at the top who are more encouraging of, who say, yes, I'm going to say 40% women are going to be in my workforce. I think we need really proactive women-centric policies. Again, as I said, if there are a limited number of jobs, who's to make that call that these jobs should go to women and not to men? And are we to make that call saying, okay, 50% of the existing jobs will go to women and 50% will go to men? So there will be these issues, but these are things that policy makers have to really seriously think about, because after COVID, when we talk about economic recovery, this really gives us a chance to rejig things a little bit. That will make it more gender friendly, because the more gender friendly you make it, the better the economic growth, the better it is for society, and so many things will see an improvement already. I mean, people laugh at Bangladesh, but they are the people who don't know that Bangladesh is the last 5 to 10 years, the success story of the last decade in South Asia. And the opposite is true for India, where the crime rates against women have been increasing, and the women's workforce participation has been coming down. Our economic performance, I mean, I'm not saying that our economic performance is linked to the gender disparity, but it is one of the reasons. And that we are not creating enough jobs in manufacturing. All these things are there. But as policymakers and as professionals, we must push for jobs that draw in more women in the workspace.
Yeah, maybe that's because Bangladesh has a woman prime minister that helps to.
No, we've had women prime ministers. I'm sorry, Megha. We've had women prime ministers. We've had a woman prime minister. Pakistan has had a woman prime minister. I don't think that has really helped. So I don't think it's about women prime ministers. I think it's about just a leadership that thinks holistically, and that thinks far. It is not just it's not crisis management, it is not perception management, nor is it publicity management, nor is it event focused. These are things that require deep thinking. These are things that require thinking for 20 years, 40 years, and only then it's going to. It is not ideology driven either. By ideology, I mean agenda driven. So these are things that you need to, nor should it be election driven. Yeah. So these are things you need to, it's a loneliness of the long distance runner, I mean, in a sense. So you have to think of the marathon, you have to think of the 42.5 kilometers.
Yeah.
Not of the 5 kilometers.
You're highlighting a very key point of, the fact that you need to have more women in the workforce because that will only help grow the economy. Ironically, you highlighted the 3-4 examples which are again pretty much stereotyping women, with tea plucking and undergarment stitching. But I guess the intent is to have more women in the workforce, irrespective of the job per se. That's the fundamental, I think. I might take or emphasize this, and I and do hope. And this is you rightly said, this is a good time to rethink, to reimagine rebuild and let's try taking that glass half full approach which Ashish spoke about, and saying that okay, there are opportunities, there are issues, let's find opportunities to make this work. So thank you so much for your time, Nirupama. Really appreciate, and thanks for your inputs and insights. I'm sure our audiences have enjoyed that interaction. And
Thank you, Megha.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a couple of more speakers left. I'm enjoying this. So much wonderful thoughts and inputs and, guidances coming through. And I'm hoping that each one of you are also, taking away all of this as positively as I am. I'm really happy to bring in our next speaker again. And we've discussed corporate representation in women in corporate representation. We've talked about grassroots level. We've talked about advertising. We've seen about how organizations are doing to address some of those societal challenges which are impacting some of this gender divide. But one of the big players, or one of the big category, let's put it this way, which can really which has contributed and can even further contribute in making a solid impact is creation of content. And content is agnostic to platform. We've whether it's an advert, whether it's a 30-second or a 30-minute or a 60-second or a 60-minute. The fact is that what you are creating can play such an integral role in sending a message. Now, whether you do it overtly or you do it subliminally is up to the content creator. So I'm really happy to introduce Aparna Advekar. She is the head of content of one of the biggest OTTs in the country today, Z5, and she's been involved in creating a lot of content. As you know, that Z5 has been creating a lot of content ever since their launch. So it'd be very good to get Aparna's view on her, on what she thinks about this situation we are in and what we as an industry can do to address it. So thank you so much, Aparna, for your time, and over to you.
Thank you, Megha. It has been a delightful morning, hearing so many perspectives from those who work and make a difference at the ground level. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing very well. The last 3 months have been a bumpy ride, right? Irrespective of our professions, education, socioeconomic strata, or gender, we've all been in deep waters. The last 3 months taught us that while we may all have been in the same storm, we're definitely not in the same boat. The storm hit all of our boats very differently. For those working women whose backbone was the domestic helper, we realized how important a factor she was in our work-life balance. For the domestic helper, her monthly source of income became a challenge. For the casual worker, there was unfortunately no job at the sites. And for the homemakers, those amongst us who are the homemakers, unpaid always for all the efforts we put in on the home front, there was more job to be done in absence of any support systems. We've known this for a while, right? That women's personal finances usually tend to be weaker than men's, and their position overall in the labor market, in the job market, possibly less secure than men. Economic vulnerability among women, therefore, comes out as a bitter, stark reality during such times. As per an article published by the World Economic Forum, domestic, sexual, and gender-based violence increases during crisis and disasters. This was seen during the 2014-16 Ebola and the 2015-16 Zika epidemics. And it may be happening now as we speak in any home. Under conditions of quarantine or stay-at-home measures, women and children who suffer this abuse may be exposed to considerably greater danger. Majority of those on the front lines of the pandemic are women, because globally, women make up for more than 70% of all health and social services staff. We need to empower all these women by providing them more resources to manage all fronts, including their own physical, mental, and emotional well-being. What then is the role of media, content creators like us, especially the entertainment fraternity in such times? Let's see if we can learn from history. The fight against COVID is no less than war. More countries of the world have been affected by COVID than they were in the last two world wars. We realize now that Hollywood's greatest contribution to the war effort and post-war changes was morale. Patriotic movies portraying sacrifices and group effort affirmed a sense of national purpose. The value of individual sacrifices for a larger cause was recognized. Movies portrayed World War II as a people's war featuring soldiers from diverse ethnic backgrounds thrown together, tested on the battlefield, and molded into a fighting unit. Today's war against COVID is similar, isn't it? It has brought together all quarters of the society, from medical professionals to law enforcement officials to conservancy workers. We have lauded the combined efforts of all in keeping us safe and healthy. Interestingly, post-World War period changed the portrayal of women characters. From being secondary characters, women played very prominent roles of not just caregivers, but women in high positions, women in power. While today's crisis is no different from the earlier wars fought at a global scale, responsible content makers like us need to over-index on representing women characters in far more brighter light than any of our earlier attempts. We need to tell more stories of women from all quarters of life whose contribution to the home and society has and will shape how we will live in the new normal in the post-COVID era. We need to tell stories of all those who have chosen to lead their own path, not in the quest of equality, but individuality. With more women at the forefront in the writing and directing process, more inclusive perspectives and opinions have finally begun to be explored. OTT has opened wider avenues to progressive shows and movies from around the globe, and great stories of hope and inspiration are available for everyone to consume and learn from. The digital age too has become a great leveler with the empowerment of the female viewer who often lost the battle to the remote. Women audiences in metros and semi-metros are responding well to see a version of themselves on screen that they haven't before. The characters of real women grappling with real issues and trying to survive in a society that has always ruled over their emotions had struck a chord with the audiences that now wants to watch unconventional slice of life content. Gender equations, in my opinion, can only tally when both the genders regard each other as individuals. The quest is never to be equal. It is to be recognized for your own individuality. We need filmmakers, writers, directors, communication experts the world over to come together and represent each gender well. The COVID crisis is unprecedented, and hence our response to this should be unprecedented too. Almost always, when women are given the opportunity, when a girl child is given the opportunity, young women are given the opportunity, they outperform and beat their own records. Investing in this energy can balance the gender equations. Respect, love, understanding, and acceptance of our diversity are possibly the most essential ingredients for true partnership between men and women. It's about time to prove that the gender equation is here to stay in the new world order. We can all contribute to make XX equal to XY. Let me conclude by showing you a glimpse of our attempt to tell the story of a woman who redefined courage and bravery in Bollywood. The story of Reshma Pathan, Bollywood's first stunt woman who proved that an opportunity is all it takes to prove your individuality. Can I request for the video to be played, please?
जख्म दो तरह के होते हैं, एक वो जो भर जाते हैं और दूसरे वो जो इंसान को बदल डालते हैं। मैं तो उस जमाने में एकदम छोटी सी थी, पर मेरे को याद है बहुत बुरा जमाना था।
क्या रे, चोरी करती है? स्मगलिंग करती है तू? साहब, हाथ नहीं उठाने का है मेरी अम्मी पे।
चल हट। डर नहीं लगता?
जो आग से जल चुके हैं साहब, उन्हें धूप से डर क्यों लगेगा?
आपकी बेटी में बहुत हुनर है आदम भाई।
बोला ना तेरा काम फिल्म लाइन में जाने का नहीं है।
अपन घर से चला गया ना, ये जो 4 आठाने घर में आते हैं वो भी आना बंद हो जाएगा।
सर मेरी मानो तो सर नहीं कर पाएगी।
तो रेशमा के अलावा ये स्टंट कोई और नहीं कर सकता सर।
तोड़ दूंगा।
हमारे कुरान में लिखा है ना, अगर खाने को कुछ नहीं हो तो हराम भी हलाल हो जाता है।
उसको पकड़ना जो धंधा करती है।
हाँ साहब, अपन स्टंटमैन हूँ, स्टंटमैन का धंधा करता है।
और तेरे को आग से निकल के भागने का है, कर लेगी ना?
दूसरों के लिए बहुत खून बहाया है गुरुजी, थोड़ा खून और निकल जाए तो कोई वांदा नहीं। सच बोलूं तो अब लगने लगा था अपन की भी कोई औकात होगी।
वाह!
अपनी कहानी अभी खत्म नहीं हुई, अपनी पिक्चर अभी बाकी है। अब तो यही चपनी दुनिया है।
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Aparna. That was, great points from a content creation point of view, and what we are doing, and we probably can and learn from certain examples of the past. I think the interesting point you made that the audience is becoming a bit more discerning. They are open to change of content consumption, and you mentioned about some of the content. Ideas and how women are getting portrayed on the OTT platform, which I completely agree. I think that's absolutely, you see those examples happening. But when you look at some of the large part of consumption, which is still very at the moment, where television does play a very key role in our country, and there is a lot of content which is still getting consumed. It's unfortunate that in this era, in this time, there was no new content they were unable to produce new content. But there is a very distinct difference of content thinking on television and content thinking on OTT. And I am not an expert, but I see, my view is based on what I see, right? So do you think do you agree? And if you do, then do you think there is a need to address that aspect as well? And what should we hence be doing to do that? Because television does have a very, very deeper connect at the moment in this country.
Absolutely. And while television does try to pander to to larger sensibilities, or look at society in the way society would like to see it, a lot of attempts have been made through really good content on television to portray the woman, the new age woman very well, and this is across channels. And I know for a fact, even at Z, when we look at our content, it has always been the woman protagonist at the center it, and showing them in very, very empowering themes, whether it has been, and Z does such great programming which is for the metros and the semi-metros, the semi-urban areas. And we do see a lot of good characters that have come forward from there that have really become iconic in that sense, right? And it's always been a good balance of the home front, which a woman in her life takes very, very seriously, right? I mean, all of us have seen during this duration also how beautifully well we balanced our own personal lives and professional lives. There were times when my laptop would be on my kitchen platform and I'm trying to fix something for dinner, yet continuing to be in that sense active in the kitchen, right? So whether urban women or semi-urban women, all of our situations may be different, and content only needs to reflect all of that very well. So I do see good attempts coming. There definitely is an opportunity, even in the nuances of these characters, to etch them very well. At the core, they they could be obliging, they could be they could be polite, they need not be brash, but in the realm of all of that, that we all of us need as good humans, right? It need not be a good woman or a good girl. It need to really portray a good human at the core. OTT in that sense has been really great. I mean, the promo I showed here, right, the Sholay girl, and we are so proud of that. An iconic woman who changed in that sense the face of Bollywood, and we were very proud to be associated with a story like that. This was very early on. It was released last year on Women's Day, and the film got a lot of accolades for its topic and things. So, yes, I mean, better representation, definitely yes. At the grassroots level, definitely yes. And all of us as creators need to contribute and think in that direction.
Fantastic. It's a great validation that, if somebody in a position of power like yourself who can make that, because it's one to say and there's one to do. And if you can actually make that happen, and you are in many ways doing that at sea, this is a good message for our industry at large that, we have to speak walk the talk, as they say. So let's create more content which appeals, which portrays women as a stronger individual, rather than this multiple times we've seen them being positioned as in a meek character. So thanks so much, Aparna, for your time. Really appreciate this, your inputs and your insights, and I'm sure the audiences have loved to whatever you spoke about. We are really, really thankful for your time today.
Thank you so much, Megha.
Thank you. So we have now our last speaker of the day today. In a way, I'm feeling a little bad because I was really enjoying this whole day. I've had such great inputs and coming in from everybody. But I guess, every good thing also needs to come to an end. So at the last end of our speaker lineup, really happy to present somebody who I respect a lot professionally, has done a lot in our industry with various roles he's had, but someone who now heads a position of power in a medium which also is a critical medium in terms of what can that medium do to drive this particular agenda and this particular voice forward. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Abe Thomas, who is the CEO of Reliance Broadcast Network, and really looking forward, Abe, to what you have to say about the gender equality or the lack of it which exists in our industry and what we can do. Over to you, Abe. Abe, can you hear? I think Abe's frozen. Abe, can you hear me? Abe, we can see you, but we can't hear you. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we're, I think, having a bit of a technical glitch while the team connects to Abe. Just request your patience. I would say of the 10 speakers we had situation with 2, which means 80% of the time we were pretty good. So I guess we were all right. So just please hold on. Abe, I think you might need to disconnect and reconnect again because we can't see you or hear you now. Abe, can you hear us? Yeah, okay, he's disconnected, and I think he will join us shortly. There, Abe, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, great. So I think we had a bit of a Technical glitch. I've just introduced you, and now it's over to you, Abe.
Okay. My slide visible? Is this visible? Am I audible? Okay, all right. So good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to be part of this very elite panel. Really worthwhile morning spent, some amazing observations and points of view. And I'm really privileged to be part of this panel and be here and share some of our own observations from this period. For a long time, even before COVID, the world has been grappling with two major issues. First is sustainability of the environment, and the second is diversity. While the world has progressed substantially in the last 2 decades, all sections of the population are not moving forward in the same pace. Today's discussion, which is on gender inequality and gender diversity, clearly the COVID pandemic has amplified the whole inequality that exists. One thing that's really struck home is that the world's formal economies and the maintenance of our daily lives are built on the invisible and unpaid labor of women. This is an opportunity to, like Ashish said, take affirmative action and correct this imbalance. Gender equality and women's rights are essential to getting through this pandemic, to recovering faster, and building a better future. See, the moral case for gender equality is very clear. The economic case for gender equality is now equally obvious. Women must have the same access for social opportunities and the same opportunities that men have for career advancement. Behind every mask, there's a face, and behind that, a story. I'd like to share here 4 observations, 4 insights that we have identified and we picked up through our interactions with our large team, through other interactions, through a lot of reading that we've done. And the first insight is that women have got a skewed understanding of productivity. Some women are trying really hard to fit into a routine, to deal with changes, while other women are struggling not to overthink, overread, and overwatch. On one hand, there's predictability, continuity, and certainty that some women are trying to achieve. And on the other hand, there's anxiety, uncertainty, and a bleak future. The second insight is that the home has become the be-all and end-all for everyone. Women are looking forward to getting back their space when they are done for the day. And a lot of women are really yearning for their own space, which has been converted into a shared space now. The third insight is that while there has been an appreciable shift in participation of the family, of the men in household chores, and which is a good sign. Like Nandini mentioned earlier, workload is being shared across families and all members are beginning to contribute. However, when it comes to care work, and by care work I mean taking care of adults, taking care of infants, taking care of dependents, it's again still assumed that that is a job that the women will do. And the fourth fourth insight is that thanks to this slowdown and the other repercussions of which we are grappling with, there are derailed careers and wider opportunities. And this will make it harder for women to rejoin the workforce when the pandemic subsides. So these are the four insights that we've continuously been exposed to from working women. From a content point of view, there's some content nuances that we've noticed. One is radio jockeys are very good at that. They communicate with a mask on all the time. They know how to communicate through the mask, and they know how to listen and understand. Right now, clearly, there is a need to look deeper into the eyes of the person to get a sense, because body language per se is getting restricted. Media will clearly seek out women's perspectives, amplify the voices of women, and portray their active role in the corona. And third is promoting the involvement of women in decision making across all facets. Like we said earlier, this is also the time to take affirmative action so that this opportunity is not lost. As an organization, these are some of the commitments that we have made that we believe that will make a difference. First commitment is saying yes to breaking stereotypical representation of women in our communication. So Akshay should no longer talk to just a bunch of women about clean toilets, but there needs to be diversity shown in every aspect of communication. Second is, as a media house, we'd like to incentivize brands that promote women empowerment and gender equality. The third is commit to actively encouraging women to re-enter the workforce. Thanks to the flexibility that work from home given, there are a lot of jobs that can get done from remote now. And we see this as a big challenge for women trying to enter the workforce. A lot of women we've encountered are forced to give up because of the pressures now of managing so many tasks at the same time. We saw that a lot of women hesitate to switch on their video. This is not because they are ashamed or just because it's not comfortable at home, but it's more because they are multitasking. While they are on a call and trying to do work, they are at the same time trying to do multiple things at the same time. And we make a commitment to drive inclusivity as part of the organization culture, which will help to empower women. All of us have seen, even in this pandemic, how women leaders have significantly done better in controlling this pandemic, and teams which have a healthy representation of women always perform better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abe. Wow, that was amazing. Because a lot of the points you spoke about were actually resonated with a lot of the previous speakers as well. So you just your points are absolutely bang on again in terms of getting more women into workforce. And this work from home, as I think is, I believe is going to really be the game changer, I think, for us in our industry and across actually every industry. And I think all our speakers have said the same thing. And I totally agree, because never did we didn't realize, 3 months ago, if somebody had told us, you have to run a network sitting out of home or run a company sitting out of home, you would think like, oh, what's wrong with this person, right? You'd laugh at that person. But now it's a reality. And I think that really brings that opportunity for women to work out of home. And you're so right about multitasking. I think women have always been multitaskers, and they continue to do that even now, whether it's on camera or off camera, but they do. And that is that's an interesting insight. I liked your point on eyes. I think eyes will play a very important role in in your human reactions and action, because you're under that mask and all you're seeing is through the eyes. And I think that was a very interesting insight from you, Abe. I think, we're limited on time, but I definitely want to ask you, you spoke about multiple aspects, but I think what do you think, because that's one question I've asked everybody, and I think I'd like to know, what could we as an industry do hence to make actually things happen? So, there's one to say and there's one to do. So is there any one or two key things all of us in the industry, whether it's advertising, marketers, like for example, you did mention about incentivizing brands to drive their consumption if it is backed by a certain women workforce, or on those lines. But is there anything else you think we should be as a communication industry doing?
Yes, very clearly, there is still a lot of gender stereotyping happening in our commercials. Whether it's a woman trying to use a washing machine or trying to use a dishwasher or a dish cleaning product, these stereotypes build aspirations, right? The classic aspiration scenes of the man sitting and reading the newspaper while the woman is serving tea in the finest china. These aspirations are getting built more and more, and I think the communication industry can clearly break these stereotypes. Well, there's nothing wrong in doing that, but that should not be the expectation from women in general. So I think in all our communication, if you are more conscious of the fact that these are building subliminal aspirations amongst people, that this is what success means and this is what a good life means and this is the aspiration that I'd like to follow, we have that responsibility to make sure that those aspirations are now balanced. And a lot of these gender stereotyping still continues, right? And washing machine or washing clothes is supposed to be a women's chore, which it needn't be, right? And the good thing about the pandemic is that most households now, the man and the family members are helping out. But like I said, when it comes to care, when it comes to adults, and when it comes to, elderly family members or to kids, it just assumed it's back to the women. So I think in our communication, if we consciously go about breaking these stereotypes, and we as a media company, we incentivize brands which do that, I think that will definitely make a difference.
Great, yeah. Though I must admit, Ariel's Share the Load campaign actually worked extremely well, because that exactly broke that stereotyping of women being, cleaning washing machines. So there are certain brands who are definitely taking that conversation, not just talking about it, actually doing it, which is very encouraging. I think as an industry, we need to have more and more such communications, which needs to there. So for example, we recently launched a creative campaign when we launched Discovery Plus, which is our OTT offering, and we tied up with we were launching it on Amazon Fire Stick. It was to be, and because Discovery content is best viewed on a large screen, so we had a campaign launch, and in that creative, the concept was about somebody's doing something, and the woman says, it's small, ye bada hona chahiye. So because the concept was to see the whole thing in a big screen. And there we took various incidents of people doing things, and very subliminally put, like, where the man is cooking and the woman is saying, man has cooked something really small, and she says, it's nice, but it's got to be bigger. Right. So, but it was with the man cooking, and she was the protagonist speaking that language. Or a little girl in her house is, not shown with a baby doll, but she's actually a budding scientist. So that was highlighted in that. Or those are the few things which you can, as a communication industry, very subliminally do. You don't take away from your brand communication and your brand communication objectives, but the creative execution, if that can be managed, which becomes part and parcel of it. And this is not something which can happen overnight. It'll take us a while for an entire mindset to change, but every step does count. So it's good to know that you are also recommending and suggesting steps in those directions. So
And
thank you.
As a media company, we're happy to actually incentivize brands which do that, so that.
That's a great validation. So advertisers who are listening, this is something great. I mean, Abe is saying that if you are a brand which supports women's I don't know how to put it, maybe causes or women's empowerment. Abe is saying that he will incentivize such brands on his platform. So thank you, Abe. That's really actually doing something, not just talking but actually doing. So thank you so much for your time, Abe. Really appreciate your inputs and your insights. I'm sure our audiences have enjoyed all of that, and I think I hope all of you have enjoyed the entire day. It really went off very quickly, and we spent the last 2.5 hours listening to some amazing speakers, and it was my privilege and honor to introduce them, talk to them, interact with them, learn from them. And I'm sure each one of you did as well. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Anuja and Dr. Sharda once again, Laadli and UNFPA for partnering with IAA. Gender equality, gender divide, these are such topics which IAA has always taken pride in and has always done a lot of initiatives for many years now, and that's one agenda we do intend to continue to have going forward. Something which is not just about this particular webinar. This is an ongoing it's a discussion, it's a conversation, it's a dialogue which needs to happen continuously. So thank you so much for logging in, and we will be posting it on our social media handles, and so you can watch this content anytime. Please share with your friends and family. And I really want to thank once again our partners, MXM, Exchange for Media, and AdGully for helping and supporting us sending this communication to people of our industry. So once again, thank you very much. Really lovely talking to all of you. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did, and look out for more and more such initiatives from IAA. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day and a super weekend. Stay safe, stay home, stay healthy. Bye.